The History of Mankind as Told by Anastasia, Life Without Violence and Crime. Among the people of the Vedic civilization, over thousands of years of its existence, there was not a single act of violence or theft, or a mere fight. Even insulting words were absent from people's vocabulary. Yet at the same time, there were no laws to punish such behavior. Laws can never protect one from evil deeds, but the knowledge and culture of the Vedic peoples completely ruled out conflicts and interpersonal relationships. Judge for yourself, Vladimir. You see, every family living in their domain was aware that should any kind of unpleasantness happen to anyone, even a stranger, on the territory of their own domain or nearby, even on the very edge of the settlement, the entire space would then suffer. The universal energy of aggression would have an effect on every growing thing and on everyone living in that space. It would upset the balance of energies. The energy of aggression might grow and leave its impression on adults and children alike, and infect their offspring with illness. By contrast, if a passing traveler leaves a feeling of joy behind, the space will radiate with even greater beauty. Not only that, but a man visiting another settlement would be physically incapable of eating food plucked from a tree without the owner's permission, or picked up from the ground in a garden upon which he had intruded. People of the Vedic culture had a highly refined sensitivity. Their physiological makeup would immediately notice a significant distinction in the taste of pilfered food from Their physiological makeup would immediately notice a significant distinction in the taste of pilfered food from that served by someone's generous hand. The whole range of foodstuffs sold in our modern supermarkets has nowhere near the fragrance and taste of the pristine produce of the Vedic age. Completely indifferent to man, it has no feeling or soul. It does not belong to anyone and is beholden to no one. It is simply merchandise for sale. If modern man could actually taste and compare food known in the Vedic times, he could never eat the produce of today. A newcomer would not even think to take what was owned by someone else without asking. Every single object, even a stone, contains information within itself known only to the family living on that particular domain. In the Vedic civilization, every domain was a fortress that loomed impenetrable to evil in whatever form. At the same time, it served as a mother's womb for the family dwelling therein. Nobody back then built high walls for fortification. The territory of each domain was protected by a living green hedge, a hedge which, along with everything living within its boundaries, protected the family from a whole host of harmful influences on the human body and soul. I already mentioned to you that the bodies of deceased family members were buried only in the garden or among the trees of their own domain. Those people were fully aware that while the human soul is eternal, the material body too cannot disappear without a trace. All objects, even those which appear to be soulless, carry within themselves a great deal of information from the universe. In the divine nature, nothing ever disappears into oblivion. It only changes its state and its material or fleshly form. The bodies of the deceased were not covered with headstones, and even the places of their burial were not marked in any way. The space created by their hands and soul served as a great monument for them, and changing their state, the now soulless bodies gave rise to trees, herbs, and flowers. New children were born and walked among them. Oh, how everything around just loved the children. The spirit of their ancestors lingered over the space, loving and protecting the children. Children treated the space of their motherland with love. Their thought created no illusion about life being finite. On the contrary, the life of the Vedic peoples was infinite. The soaring soul passes through all the dimensions of the universe, and after visiting a number of different planes of being, it is once again embodied in a conventional human form. Upon waking in the garden of his motherland, the child will once again give a bright smile. The whole space responds to his smile, and the little rays of light, the breeze rustling the leaves on the trees, the flowers and the stars in the distant sky will sigh, "We are at one, embodied by you, child of divine being." Even today, people cannot figure out why elderly people living on foreign strands ask to be buried in their motherland. Such people intuitively suspect that only their motherland can bring them back to the earth in a paradise garden, while a foreign strand rejects their souls. To have their bodies buried in the motherland has been the aspiration of people's souls for millennia. But can a cemetery be called a piece of the motherland in any nation? Cemeteries are a markedly recent phenomenon, designed to tear human souls apart in hellfire, demean and subjugate them, and make them into lowly slaves. Cemeteries, well, they are like cesspits, where people go to get rid of their useless junk. The souls of the dead are tormented over cemeteries, while the living are terrified of cemetery plots. Picture to yourself, by contrast, a kin's domain of Vedic times. Bodies of many generations are buried there. Every little herb aspires to tenderly care for those living therein, to be useful to man's life in the flesh. But every herb and every fruit in the garden can suddenly become poisonous when faced with aggression on the part of a newcomer. That is why nobody even thought of taking away anything without asking. The domains could not be seized by force. They could not be bought for any amount of money. Of course, who would dare trespass on a place that is capable of destroying the trespasser? And each individual here endeavored to create their own marvelous oasis. The whole planet grew more beautiful with each passing year. When modern man surveys a city from on high today, what does he say? What does he see, pray tell? The whole ground covered with an accumulation of artificially erected stones. Dwellings spread in all directions, upward and outward. Here, there, and everywhere lie miles and miles of vast expanses blanketed by stone landscapes. There is no clean water anywhere. The air is polluted. How many happy families can dwell under their own pile of stones? If one compares modern families with those of the Vedic culture, the answer is not a single one. And one could go further. Amidst these piles of artificial stone, people do not dwell. They sleep. And yet in this hypnotic sleep, a single living cell still strays like a tiny nucleus through the body. Sometimes at rest, sometimes in motion, this living cell touches teeming multitudes of others, attempting to awaken those that are asleep. Its name is Dream, and it will awaken them. Then human families will once again create marvelous oases upon the earth. As it was before, so it will be again. And in looking down on the earth from on high, man's gaze will once again be much charmed by a multitude of living scenes. And each of these marvelous scenes will mean that the earth has been touched in that spot by the hand of an awakened Vedras. And once again, a happy family of people will be dwelling on their own plot of the motherland. people who have learned to know God and the meaning and purpose of life. The Vedic people knew why stars are in the sky. Their numbers included a great many poets and artists. There was never any rivalry among the communities. There was no cause for crime or violence. There was a complete absence of hierarchical structures. The Vedras culture flourished on the territories of our modern nations of Europe, India, Egypt, and China, and there were no lines of demarcation, Demarcation, dividing the various areas of land. There were no rulers, either important or petty. The sequence of grand celebrations provided a natural order of things. People of the Vedic age possessed a knowledge of creation far in advance of modern man. Their inner energy allowed them to enhance the growth of some plants and arrest that of others. Household animals endeavored to carry out man's commands, not to obtain food, which they already had in abundance, but to receive from man a reward in the rays of the energy of grace emanating from him. Even today, a word or gesture of praise from man is pleasing to everybody, to people, animals, and all growing things. But in earlier times, people's energy was immeasurably greater. All things were drawn to it, as to the sun.